All right, welcome back to the Morning Express. And well, just before we go to the newsroom and indulge in what we've been reporting, as where we sort of retrospect and look at our job and how we've been doing it, just to give you a traffic update. Apparently, Mombasa Road is at a standstill. Listen, if you're still in the house and you're using Mombasa Road, relax. Take some coffee, just, keep us company right here. Badala kwenda kupark. In fact, Kanjo right now might charge you for parking. It's the largest car park right now. Thika Road, on the other hand, seems to be very good. It seems to be going smooth, which is a good thing. Ngong Road has grinded to a halt. This is from Usalama. Let's see which other route. Bellevue is crazy, 32 minutes for 4 kilometers stretch. Somebody has spent 32 minutes on a 4 kilometer stretch. Kiambu Road is packed but moving, and it just seems that there's traffic everywhere, which is one of the advantages that we have when we have to report to work so early. I know, whilst waking up at 4 a.m. is the hardest thing ever. I think just being able to be at work in 5 minutes is amazing. It is. Because I remember when yesterday I was in traffic, literally one spot on Uhuru Highway for half hour. I just want to come out and just, start hollering at the guys around in their cars. And at 4 a.m., that's when you realize how short distances are, but you always imagine they're so long. It might take you 5 minutes from Westlands to here. Okay, not 5 minutes. It depends on which car you're driving. But 30 minutes in one spot is annoying. It is. I mean, it's frustrating. And also just think about some of the man hours we waste in traffic. I was calculating, like yesterday, how much time to and fro I spent in traffic. It's a lot. It's crazy. I mean, a lot needs to happen in terms of our systems to make traffic flow better. But I think we're better than Nigeria. Nigeria is a nightmare. Oh, it is bad. So the moral of the story, in short, is stay with the Morning Express. Wacha kwenda mali unaenda kana sisi unaenda kupark. Well, then again, if you're going to get fired, do not quote us. Let's get into the newsroom now. Clay Muganda, who's features editor for The Standard on Sunday, joins us. We also have Ngujiri Wabogo, who's a political commentator, and Patrick Gadara, who's a communications consultant. Gentlemen, to the two of you, I already said Happy New Year last week. So Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So we can say Happy New Year until the end of January. When does it get old, by the way? It gets old. I think from the 15th of January, that's when from now officially, from tomorrow you can't say Happy New Year, even if you've not seen someone. I don't know. We were in November. If I've not seen you, it's the first time in 2015. So Happy New Year. These are the guys who start Merry Christmas in November. Dances say Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, and all of that. We thank you for joining us, gentlemen, this morning. A lot to discuss in as far as how the media has been covering some of these stories. And I want to start with the teacher strike. Yes, with the teacher strike, and maybe I can start with Clay. And the thing is, do you think we have been reporting or looking for the issues that are really pertinent to the teacher strike? Or are we just reporting what people are saying? Do you go to this side and say the teachers' union says this, go to this side, the government is saying this? Do you think we've been looking for the real issues, the crux of the matter? I think the teachers' strike has actually been well covered so far. I don't know what these two gentlemen might say, but I think from the newsroom, from the print newsroom, we've looked at the issues, and I think we've interrogated all these issues and said actually that this thing needs to be sorted out, because the people who are suffering are actually the parents. On the flip side is that there are actually other parents who are celebrating because they spent their money during the holidays, so now they don't have money to buy books and all that. So actually there's a story here nobody has told, that the other parents actually were saying like, okay, fine, so can Sosion hold this thing for another 3 weeks until the beginning of February, so that when I get my January salary. But I think it's been interrogated, and I think we've been very fair. I think we've done a good job. Okay, Gunjiri.
Two things. I think first and foremost, we are focusing on the big guys in this conversation, the union leadership. I saw the parent leadership. I've never actually understood how that parent association actually works. But then there's that association, and then of course we've got government and TSC. But then nobody's actually talking about the child who is a student. Nobody's talking about what's happening to this child, because he or she has got to go to school, and the exams don't change because you didn't go to school for a month. Nobody's really looking at that dynamic. Number two, nobody's asking how come we have a strike every year. It's now become routine. Perennial. It's every year The only difference is that now we are not going into exams. But we have, so this structure that every year you're going to have a major fallout between government and the teachers union needs to get investigated. What is the origin? Is it because now it's become a routine, it's become a ongoing conversation. It happens the whole year, and then at some point we go on strike, and then you guys go to court, and then you stop us from going on strike, and then we declare the strike illegal, and then we all sit and we say we don't care about court orders. I mean, we remember, was it last year when Soshion was locked up in a room by the other teachers so that he could not be served with papers or something? So this is, no, that's another conversation I would like to see media trying to interrogate about why has it become a constant conversation. And then finally, something else I'd like to which I don't think media is talking about, is what the teachers are asking for is actually practical. It would be interesting to see a non-partisan conversation about this is what the teachers are asking for. When you put that in the big scheme of things, can it actually work? And what are you getting in return? So this is what the union is asking for. What are they offering in return? In every financial transaction. So you want me to give you so many billions of shillings. In return, we are committing that our membership is going to do the following things. So nobody is actually challenging the union to ask. So you're asking for this money, all this money. What are you offering in return? What new improvement are we going to see?
And you know, that's interesting you say that, Ngunjiri, because there was a World Bank report 2013 just looking into the state of education, and about 50% of teachers were said not even to be in classrooms. Because at the end of the day, even in a work environment, you are remunerated according to what you're giving. When you talk about a job evaluation, some people will get more pay because you're giving more, you're more qualified. So at the end of the day, yes, many will argue they deserve more pay, but at the end of the day, you're being paid for what? Because as an employer, I want to know, what am I paying you for?
And that's something I would like to hear the media asking, because maybe they are the only ones who can ask that. I mean, government has suggested evaluation and union has hit the roof, but the media could actually ask. So, I mean, I've seen Soshion in a lot of media houses explaining their position, but nobody's asking him, so what is it that you guys are actually going to give Kenyans in return for this extra amount of money?
I think that what Ngojia said, I mean, lots of it makes some sense. I think it points to the fact that all we discuss is the strike. Is what's happening now, not what's deeper, not what's driving it, what's under it. You know, the reports that you cite on teachers not turning up for work, 50%, point to a wider problem that we have in the education system that is again not addressed. I think it was again last week I was talking about the Coach report. Till today, no mention again, if you notice. We're not really taking it seriously. This is just seen as a fight between teachers, a perennial fight between teachers and government. I would though disagree that it's not so much for us to say, or for us to demand that the teachers who are asking for more pay kind of justify why they want to be paid. These people have contracts with government. The fact that they don't turn up for work, we should be asking for, like TSC, the employers. We've got education officers whose job it is to monitor how these things are done. We've got an entire infrastructure that's supposed to ensure when teachers are supposed to be in class, they are there. That what they're teaching is relevant, is important, that they're sticking to curricula, etc. Why is all of this? And we're paying for it, So again, it becomes we're being milked, people aren't doing their work, we're paying them, and then we turn around and I mean, I'm not saying that teachers are blameless, I mean, far from it. But we've got to look at it as a holistic problem. Problem is the entire system, it's how the system itself is set up. It is set up essentially to fail. We are pumping money into free education, free primary education, yet people are moving their kids away from public schools into private schools where they need to pay. It is that bad.
Actually,
and I think again, in the context of this strike, I mean, I would imagine if you go ahead and look at people who are enrolling their kids, probably a lot more guys are thinking, well, why am I putting my kid in a public school where he's right now doing nothing? You know, push him on to private school. And the problem with that is it drives prices up in private schooling, which locks in the poor only into the system that is failing. They don't have choices. It reduces their choices. So we need again to reevaluate our entire approach to it. The idea that education reform only equates to removing fees, you know, or giving out some gadgets. I think that's a huge problem we have, and we need to get a bit more serious about how we tackle the problems in education.
I think it's actually it's the whole education system, because I don't have the facts, but I mean, knowing Kenya, I want to guess that there's some people or very many senior people in the government or in actually who probably are businessmen and they run private schools. So for them, when the public education system fails, it is good for them. The same thing, like that's why some of our systems fail, like the transport system, because there's no way we could actually invest more in railway because these people own the tracks.
They own matatus.
They own matatus and all that. You get. So I want to believe this is why we're having all these problems. Nobody wants this thing to be solved. Nobody wants this thing to be solved, because if you solve it and you make the public education system, if it works, then the private schools fail, the businesses fail. Because I want to believe every year I see new advertisements for new private schools. Every single year or every single month, there's always, you go to any neighborhood, you will see a school under a bar, I mean, on top of a building, the ground floor is a bar, upstairs is a private school, all these things, and everybody here is a wheeler dealer when it comes to the education system. And I think what's happening is that we are actually not taking education seriously. Why would we take it seriously when we actually deify people who make money or who are successful without telling us how they made their money? So you cannot criticize anybody because you say like, oh, so you're criticizing him and he makes more money than you, and you get, and he did not go to school. So actually, we have no regard for a better education system.
Coming back to whether the media has actually covered this whole education system properly. First and foremost, it's interesting. I don't know how many people in the media have children in public school.
I'll tell you, we were forced.
Is that necessary?
No, I'm not saying. I want to explain why.
Okay.
I want to explain why, because, see, if you cover, you are covering a certain situation. Of course, we say that you're supposed to actually go. You don't have to have lost somebody in a crisis or in something to be able to. But then you see the issue about, and that's what I was talking about earlier. When you have a routine problem, something that happens all the time, what happens is that if you are not involved in it, you start dealing with it as a routine problem. So a lot of the people who are covering these stories cover them as stories. So you have a situation where you're going to look, as you are seeing the pictures, you have children playing outside the school because the teachers are not there. You have teachers on strike in the street. Now,
but that would suggest, Ngunjiri, you want journalists to be very subjective in our coverage, because ideally, many of the things we cover, at the end of the day, objectivity is what should drive every journalist, whether it's an issue that affects you or not.
True. But you see, also, part of the reason why you get a lot of, and I'm sure we're going to go to the Charles Hebdo story at some point, and we're going to talk a lot about that vis-a-vis the media. But you see, part of the reason why you see the media covering some stories better than others is involvement, because you're not just in that story because you're doing the story. You're in that story because you have a child at home who did not go to school. You're trying to follow up and find out why you got, and you know that this child is going to compete with another child who is in school in a private school at the end of the year, sit for the same exam and be judged on the same marks. So you're actually going to pursue that story to find out why are we in this problem all the time.
Munjiri, we can do that. We can do that. But the thing is, I mean, there are systems. You are also voters. You know, we can only inform you as much as like other media, like this is what is happening, but we cannot leave the offices and actually go and hold the government and tell them, come on, act on this. You are also voters. Our job is to inform you, to make you aware that actually this is what is happening. Why is it that it is this 6,000, 7,000 or 10,000 people, actually this institution called the media, that you guys want to hold to account all the time? And you guys want to sit back as voters. Didn't you vote in these people? I mean, don't you think that actually...
You're not.
No, the government. I mean, it's the system. That actually should actually also talk to and tell them, like, okay, talk to these people. You have also talents.
I think both these two kind of miss the mark. I don't think you should... there should be any expectation that for media to cover a story properly, that they necessarily have to be a part of it, or that they've got to have their kids in public schools. Where I would agree with Gunjiri is there seems to be within the entire press corps a fundamental lack of curiosity, that people don't go out and actually find out these things and stick with stories to the end. You know, I also think that the press is not just an arena where people jump in and throw in their viewpoints, and then we wait for 5 years for people to vote. You know, the press does exercise power, does exercise influence. You know, and I think in their highlighting what the actual issues are. You know, if you go to the people who today set our education policy, the people who sit both in Parliament and in State House, and ask how many of them have their kids in the system they're recommending for the rest of Kenyans. Why don't we have that story? You know, why is it that they say the rest of you can have free education, but I'll pay for my kids? Because they know what they're giving you. You know, and those are the stories we want. That's when we start looking at it holistically, from how the policy is actually developed, you know, to why, to who it benefits, all the way down. Then we become a bit more serious as a country about solving problems, not playing around with things, not shifting, not a game of musical chairs, you know, but actually solving the problems. 844 has been with us longest time. We have had free education for over a decade. You know, it's been tried 3 times before, I think twice before actually, and it's failed. Always, it's failing now. Who is asking? Why does it fail, and why do we keep repeating history? To build up on what Gadara is saying, the lack of curiosity is, for example, there was this leaked payslip that did the rounds on social media, and then it got disowned by Sosion. And I want to actually know, even within the Kenya National Union of Teachers leadership, how many of their kids are actually in public school? You know, the guys who are representing the welfare of the teachers, and we've got a lot of the bulk of the teachers operating from public schools. How many of the leadership, how many of the representatives of those teachers actually take their children to the schools in which they are fighting for? How many, what is the discrepancy between the amount of money that the union leaders are earning and the teachers? There was a story about how the conversation that is going on is now, there's a conflict about allowances and basic salary. I don't know, one media house tried to follow up how it's affecting the union and why they're pursuing the basic pay and not the allowances. It would be interesting to see that story pursued to the end. But you see, we have a 24-hour cycle of news in this country, so that if your story hasn't hit the front page, if it hits the front page on the first day, it doesn't actually even go to page 3 on the 3rd day. It just disappears.
Okay, we'll wait today to see what the judgment will be from the industrial court, giving direction on the teachers' strike. But a new man... There's no judgments. They're just meeting to discuss. They've actually been brought together by the judge. But the directive on whether it's actually legal.
But I think the onus lies in basically the public institutions. That is actually the state. It is because we have invested our faith and hope in it. I mean, it needs to solve. I would not go for Nat per se personally, because I did not elect Nat. But I would go for the people we elected. Actually, those are the people we should be asking questions. And I mean, the media can do all these things. The media can do all these things, because what I'm seeing here is that we are trying to absolve the government. We should not. If you're holding Nat to account, we should actually hold the government to account, because that is the guy. I have so much faith in the government. There is nothing that the government should fail to solve. It should solve everything. The government is so powerful.
Yeah, but isn't that now the job of the press? And
but you see, we can do, I'm telling you, we can do all these things.
But if you're actually doing it...
we're not going to force that guy.
No,
like,
but if you're actually doing it... You're not going to
call Kaimenyi and tell Kaimenyi, sit here, we're watching you, you have to solve this thing now. You see, we can report all these things. We can...
Actually, if you guys were actually reporting it, then you would have a leg to stand on in that argument. The fact is, you can't say that we are not reporting because even if we did,
not that we're not
nothing would happen.
No, I'm saying not, not that we're reporting. You see, it's being said, it's like, okay, this thing is not getting resolved because the media is not reporting. No.
Oh, no.
I don't think anyone is saying that.
I don't think anybody is saying that.
The issue is that there's more linkages that... His argument, there are more linkages that could be drawn with what has happened in the past, context as well, and the deeper issues in the education sector.
These gentlemen have mentioned, at some point or the other, they've been reported about, like, oh, where do their children go to school and all this. They've been reported.
Yes. We have done
a story of Sossion at his home with his kids. That has already been done. And I remember what somebody...
I'm sure you didn't do that as a headline
story. On TV. I remember even some guy commenting on Twitter that actually Sossion is... that was last year. Sossion is complaining about this laptops or whatever for kids, and his children actually have that because he was shown at home.
Actually, you know, Clay, you're actually highlighting one of the problems, and this is one of the major problems. Anybody could say today that the Koech report has been covered because somebody wrote about it in 1998.
Exactly. No, for the Koech report,
yes, precisely. The fact isn't that, it's this sort of episodic way we cover news. It just appears and it disappears.
But
we don't draw the links that show us why it's important to know this. Okay. And this is my, it's been my view for a long time.
Let's move on, Clay, to another story. And Desra Simiyu Chiloba is the man who was named CEO of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. And after his that announcement, you've seen CORD come out, some of the leaders saying, you know what, it's just a matter of time before he's muddied by the entire commission, which they believe should be disbanded. There should be an overhaul in as far as the leadership of the IEBC. In terms of covering this particular story and that of the commission 2 years to another general election, has the media knocked enough on IEBC's door to ask questions? Because IEBC appears to have taken a back seat. You remember the time there was a voter registration that was happening and most people did not appear to even know it was happening. Yes, it should be continuous, but expectation was that at least an announcement that, hey, this is happening, to even get more people to participate. Should the media be out there, Ngunjiri, saying, hey, IEBC, now that there were all these failures, there are all these gaps, there are all these questions and concerns going into 2017, what is it you're doing so that, as much as on one hand we are seeing CORD saying, you even wonder going into that election whether they should even be fielding people because already they don't have confidence in the system, but perhaps IEBC needs to be doing more, but is the media calling them to task?
They should, but they won't. And this is why. They should be calling them to task. They should be having a running commentary on the IEBC because of the kind of effect it has. I mean, on even just national security and national cohesion in this country. But the media will not do it because they're going to wait until there's a crisis or there's a scandal and run that story. And so we have...
And the media
the word, yes, because for them, the media...
Well, and that's after the documents were released.
The media focuses on unearthing scandals, not running comprehensive... You see, IEBC is not about scandals. IEBC is about registering, it's a process. It's about registering voters, about ensuring about keeping its voter registers, the integrity of its voter registers. There is the mundane work that IEBC does. Now, that is not exciting. What is exciting is the scandals, the chicken. That is what is exciting. And that, until that happens, media will not talk to IEBC until the next scandal, which is very unfortunate in my opinion.
If I say, I think my problem isn't so much that they focus on chicken gate, whatever you might call it, but that they don't again do the links. What does chicken gate mean? What did it mean about the running of the last election, for example? What are the gaps? The IEBC itself has admitted in its various audits that they have huge problems. They've actually called for a public inquiry into aspects of the election. And this is not about reversing outcomes, you know, it's learning lessons. The biggest security challenge Kenya faces, the one thing that can finish this country off, as we saw in 2007, is a bungled election. You know, yet in the context of a security debate, it never comes up. It's never discussed. You know, if we want to fix problems, I go back to this. If our intention is to fix problems, not just play around, you know, play politics with them, let's understand what went wrong, what were the gaps. Let's have a proper audit of the entire system. And don't forget, it failed on very many levels. From registration, you know, all the way to the voting booths, you know, and stuff. And even had, after the petition, the presidential petition, the Supreme Court justice saying, well, actually, if we had more time, we'd have ruled differently, or we might have ruled differently. You know, what does that tell you? We need to be looking at legislation, you know. What is the time period for petitions, you know? etc. How do we resolve at every stage? What are the challenges, what are the problems, and how do we fix them, you know? And it's when we get serious about these sorts of issues that we don't just brush aside, you know, IEBC. It's not an issue that CORD might have a problem with IEBC. The problem is the 45% or 50% of Kenyans who are sitting behind it, who might have a problem with something the IEBC announces. And then you've got a huge issue in 2017. We've only got 2 years. So let's fix it.
A very short time. Clay, I'll bring you in on this and ask you, do you think we've been asking the right questions when it comes to IEBC? Have we followed through the story, or are we waiting for, you know, now these by-elections, or a scandal, then we can jump in?
I want to answer these two gentlemen when they talk about that we should be having a running commentary and all that. You are columnists. Yeah, and okay, I don't know, you probably get paid for those columns. If I were you, actually, I would write this column every day and have this running, not weekly. I would do it every day and have this running commentary every day, because you tend to feel that the media has not been doing enough. Yes, I know we have our shortcomings, but sometimes I think you are unfair when actually you say that
you're shifting blame.
No. I think sometimes that you're very unfair when you say that the media only focuses on scandals and all that. These scandals actually, it's a part of the narrative of how bad or how rotten IEBC or the system is. That's why we actually unearthed this scandal. It was a part of the whole investigation, the whole narrative of IEBC. I think questions have been asked, yes, I mean, about the efficacy of the IEBC, even before the elections. Maybe we did not probe it so much, but I think questions were asked. And you see, things have been coming out. We've been unearthing things time and again. I don't know how the whole picture is supposed to turn out. But as I said again, we can only do this much. Then even the Supreme Court actually suggested that IEBC or some officials needed to be investigated or something like that, I think in the ruling for the petition. Now, what are we supposed to do? Who is supposed to take over that? Is it the DPP or is it the Criminal Investigation Department?
You guys follow up on this.
Don't you then ask that question
next? See, that's what I'm saying. Like, but so now we can ask this question. But what I keep on saying is that I'm not saying that our hands are tied. Is that we are given a responsibility here, not to stop being actually a watchdog, to actually be the attack dog. You know, to go there and say like, we are actually arresting you.
I don't think anybody has suggested this.
But also, yeah, to add to what,
there are other systems that actually also need to act in tandem.
I agree.
Yes.
But you see, Clay, this is the problem. We have IEBC, so we have spoken about Chicken Gate. That conversation came in, what, a couple of months ago, and it's gone. And now it will not, and see, as you say, we have 2 years. Nobody is actually asking, as Gadara is saying, and it's very interesting that today Gadara and I are just agreed on many things.
Of course, yes, you
have
very,
very strange.
You have to agree.
But it's not usual. But what I'm saying is that nobody is actually asking how that affected the last election and how it could affect the next one. Nobody is going to find out. And you see, this is a responsibility
Have you asked
about
this in
information.
your column?
But you see, I am not media. I'm just a columnist.
Okay.
This is a problem about the problem about when you take the responsibility of exposing a scandal. As you said, we're not asking you to be an attack dog. But then when you have exposed it, you have said so and so was found doing something bad, and then you've moved on. Now, the thing is, that exposure, now even the authorities who might actually want to kill that story have learned to wait out the media, because in another 2 weeks,
but isn't that the nature of the media? Their news cycle. That honestly, it would be unrealistic.
But you see, that news cycle is what we are talking about.
That's exactly. But how realistic is it, Bunjiri?
Because it's not
even the last week's column was topical, or rather, was it this week? Was topical.
Actually,
I'd like you to write about something.
No. But you see,
I mean, you have to be realistic.
Let me tell you, I think we have a lazy media.